Hey, everybody. Welcome to the DynastyPro's Devy Show. Alongside SC Romero and Justin Taylor, I'm Tommy Harvey. Tonight we'll have Nicholas Harbor positional update, transfer and commitment news, and a special 3-round Devy mock. All that coming up now. Hey guys, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. Good. Excited to talk some Devy news as far as some draft, give some people insight on what they should be looking for in their drafts this upcoming year.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this show for 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, man.
Well, let's go and jump into it. Before we get started, as always, do us a favor, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. If you'd like to know when we go live, just make sure you also hit that notification bell. You'll know whenever we have any show go live. Let's jump right into some Devy news. Starting with Nicholas Harbor out of South Carolina. There was a lot of positional ambiguity whenever it came to Harbor. People didn't know if he was going to play defensive end, move to tight end, or if he was going to stick at wide receiver. Head coach Shane Beamer says he will actually start off at wide receiver, and then they will take it from there. From my understanding, Harbor doesn't want to gain a whole lot of weight because he also wants to continue to run track. So sticking at wide receiver makes a lot of sense for him, and he's a monster of a human being as well. Absolutely huge. Moving on to some transfer news here. Wide receiver Jordan Hudson is transferring from TCU to SMU. That is actually a pretty big deal. Hudson was actually probably going to be in line to have a pretty big role at TCU before he decided to move on. Now moving on to SMU, he's going to be catching passes from a stud quarterback, Preston Stone. So SMU is getting a big time transfer there. Also, wide receiver Keon Coleman transferring from Michigan State to Florida State. That is going to pair very nicely with Johnny Wilson for Jordan Travis. Also, looks like Ole Miss appears to be the favorite to land wide receiver Zachary Franklin out of UTSA. He put up back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons there in San Antonio, and decided to hit the portal just about a month or so ago. I look at that as probably being a pretty big deal. He may actually end up being the top wide receiver transfer in the off season, all off season. Auburn running back Jarquez Hunter has been suspended amid a sex video investigation. There's been some video surface of him and another guy with his ex-girlfriend, and the University of Auburn is looking into that. So Hunter has been suspended pending an investigation. Just kind of a weird situation there. And also, last but not least here, the top 2024 tight end recruit, Jaden Riddell, committed to Georgia very, very soon after Dylan Raiola committed there. Gotta think that was a big factor in Riddell's commitment over the past couple weeks.
Yeah, Tommy, can we talk about these guys real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever you got to say it.
I want to jump in on Franklin real quick. Just sure. As a CFF guy, he was a beast the last couple of years. I had him paired up with Harris for UTSA, and they led me to a championship in CFF C2C league last year. So when they both decided to come back, I was absolutely fired up because I was like, oh, this is my chance to go back to back. These guys led my team last year. And then all of a sudden, Franklin decides to transfer, which is a little bit of a surprise. I mean, he got a ton of work, ton of catches. I'm not sure if he thinks the transfer is going to help his draft stock possibly, and that would happen. But I mean, Ole Miss is a high-powered offense. They weren't great last year. You're hoping they kind of turn the corner this year with all the talent they have. But it'd be interesting to see how he fits in there compared to him being the guy at UTSA. I know they were loaded with 3 stud wide receivers and a good running back, but they just threw the ball all over the place. Ole Miss likes to pound the ball a little bit more. It'd be interesting to see how he kind of fits in. It does this. Do you guys think this actually, if he goes there and balls out the same or close to what he did at UTSA, do you think this really ups his Devy stock and his draft stock for the NFL?
I think probably just because he's taken that big step up in competition, going from G5 to the SEC, SEC West in particular, which is loaded. I'll have to actually go back and kind of pay a little bit more attention to him. See what his speed and route running looks like. See what type of strength he has at the point of the catch and blocking and all that stuff to see if his game translates a little bit more to the NFL.
Yeah, he's a guy I like a ton. I was just gonna say he's a guy I liked a ton. I thought he would be a possible 3rd rounder if he came into this year's draft. And it'll be interesting to see how he kind of fits with next year's draft. Obviously, him being a year older, and obviously, he's going to see how he hits at Ole Miss. But he's a guy I thought had top 3 round potential, possibly depending on how his combine worked out, how his 40, all that. But I think he's a guy who has a lot of talent. I really do. I know some of these guys at smaller schools just put up great numbers, and so you're not sure how that translates to the next level. But I'm super interested to see how this works out for him. SC, tell me what you got on this guy.
No, I mean, if he goes out in balls, of course, it's going to raise his draft stock. Going to the SEC is just a dominant defensive conference. So if a wide receiver goes out there year one and just has a phenomenal season, I don't see why he wouldn't raise his draft stock. The thing I would be looking at is if he goes out there and balls, is it balling because of talent, or is it finally Jackson Dart has a new target where he actually does some great things and he raises his draft stock itself? Frankly, I don't doubt that he will, so I'm really going to be curious on, is it going to be Jackson Dart that elevates his draft stock based on what he gets in a new stud receiver there?
Or is it even going to be Jackson Dart throwing in the ball?
Yeah, we might have.
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, just seeing what Jonathan Mingo, where he got drafted this year after not actually putting up even great numbers at Ole Miss, but just having, that elite player profile. Right. If Franklin's not quite Mingo as far as player profile and combine, but puts up double the numbers, does that equal 2nd rounder? Does that equal early 3rd? That's what's going to be interesting to see.
Well, wide receivers are definitely hard too in the NFL drafts because it's like they take guys. I mean, we saw Tyquan Thornton go, 2nd round a couple of years ago for the Patriots. So they're always a curious thing. And really, it's just if you impress during that combine to those coaches, they're like, man, we gotta take you. So that will be a huge part in his whole draft stock itself. But the numbers will definitely help if he goes out there and shows he's a 1 for an SEC team.
That's true, but I'm actually a little bit more interested in the other 2 transfers we saw over the past week or two with Jordan Hudson and Keon Coleman. I think those 2 have a better pedigree than what Franklin does. They may not have done productively what Franklin has done over the past couple of years, but I think their pedigree and their athleticism probably translates a little bit better.
Yeah, Coleman going to FSU, I thought that was gigantic. When I heard the news that he was leaving Michigan State to go to FSU with Jordan Travis, this is a great – I mean, this is all in for him. This is a great opportunity. If he balls out at FSU with Jordan Travis, you got to think he skyrockets up draft boards. But if he doesn't come in and play well with a good QB like Jordan Travis on a team that's, kind of moving up. FSU is a team a lot of people are talking about. Man, you're Coleman, you're all in. I mean, at least if he didn't have the numbers at Michigan State, he can complain about the offense and the QB and all that. But if he doesn't put up big numbers at FSU, that worries me for his Devy stock. But right now, I'm probably in on him on Devy. Like this just seems like a great situation for him, where they don't have any absolute elite the man wide receivers right now going to camp. They have a lot of guys that could be that guy, but there's not a returner that's that guy yet. And if Coleman can be Jordan Travis's guy, man, I think he just goes up draft boards big time.
But let's not forget about Johnny Wilson. He's still there. Also, they brought in Jaheim Bell out of South Carolina, so that offense is going to be pretty nasty.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think they have a ton of talent. It's just the fact of they didn't have a clear-cut number one, this is the guy. So I think Coleman's going to get a chance to get in the mix with all those other guys. And, I mean, Florida State is coming with just mad talent all over, running back, wide receiver, tight end. I mean, this team in the ACC is going to be dangerous this year.
Oh, absolutely.
With Jacquez Hunter, I mean, he was going into the season, I think, as looking as the RB1, and with this allegation happening and everything, it's who is it? Is it the guy that was there last year in Damari Alston, who's gonna possibly take the rounds? Is it the freshman coming in, Jeremiah Cobb, or is it the transfer that you brought up earlier, Tommy, in Brian Batty, from South Florida? So it's gonna be a very interesting running back room, and that's someone. If Hunter can't go, I'm definitely targeting one of those running backs in the later rounds, because whoever does get the reins can have a successful season. Auburn does like to produce some running backs, and they do pretty well in your college leagues too. So, I mean, definitely target one of those if we find out Jacquez Hunter isn't going to be there.
Well, I would say outside of Hunter, in terms of Devy, Cobb is the guy to go after. The incoming freshman 4-star running back. He's the guy who will be the guy at some point, whether it's this year or next year. But he's got plenty of talent to do it himself.
Good, do it all kind of back. He has some speed with him too.
Yep, yep. That's right. All right, guys. Well, how about we go ahead and jump into this 3-round mock? We actually did this mock over the last couple weeks, and it's just the three of us. So we each had a pick within every 3 picks. So I'll let JT go and start us off, because he had pick 101 in this draft.
Yeah. So for me, I'm assuming this is a super flex league.
Yes.
If this is a 1 QB league, Marvin Harrison, wide receiver, Ohio State, he's
right.
my guy. He's my guy. I love Marvin Harrison. I'm all over Twitter talking about Marvin Harrison. I've loved Marvin Harrison all the way back to freshman year. I was all over him. Early Devy, I just thought, man, the guy's got a profile. I have to be honest. His dad's my favorite player of all time. So I was excited about him. I jumped on Devy shares of him early. But the guy you got to take right now, just straight value, is Caleb Williams. The 101, he's got to be 101 everywhere right now. USC quarterback, coming off a Heisman. He's got talent upon talent upon talent around him. And we did on the Dynasty Pros, we did a startup rookie plus Devy IDP draft not too long ago. And Tommy, I think it was you.
It was me, yeah.
Let me know. I think it was you that you jumped on Caleb Williams at the beginning of the second round.
Yep.
I was looking at Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison. I was at the end of the second, and I was like, I'm going to take one of those guys that gets me. I thought I might be too early on him, and I didn't even get close to me. I didn't even get a chance to take him.
Nope. Not either one.
Went early, and like right now, Caleb Williams, the value is through the roof. You have to take him at 101.
Yep. I agree with that. SCU had pick number 2. Where'd you go with it?
I mean, it's funny because he said, single QB leagues, you get Marvin Harrison, and really he's someone that can be talked about here if Caleb goes number 101. But I think in a super flex league, you're taking Drake May from UNC. The upside is just there from him. If he goes out there and balls, he has the build to be a starting QB. He can make all the good throws. He has some upside in running possibly. The thing is he lost Josh Downs, right? So it's going to be who's going to step up and be that wide receiver for him. But in super flex leagues, you're going Caleb and Drake May 10 out of 10 times most likely.
Yeah, but I definitely agree with that. I ended up with back-to-back picks here because we kind of went in reverse order after the first three. So my number with the 1-3, I took Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that's kind of a no-brainer there. Those first three picks, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that's pretty much consensus. Can't go wrong with any one of those three. They could actually kind of be, in any order you wanted to put them in. Even in a super flex, Marvin Harrison Jr. could still possibly go 1-1. And of course, in a Devy draft, it's just a startup. But if you're in a rookie draft with just a plain dynasty league, it depends on what your need is, right? You're either, if you need a quarterback, you're going to go Caleb Williams. If you need a wide receiver, you're going to go with Marvin Harrison Jr. at 1-1. It's kind of a lot like this year where Bijan Robinson was the clear cut 1-1, but then after that there was a little bit of flexibility there, whether you took Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, or you went Jahmyr Gibbs or JSN or whatever, and then with 1-4, I went with Raheem Sanders, running back out of Arkansas. I have steadily moved him up my Devy boards. He just looks like the absolute complete back, and the best back available right now. In this running back class for the 2024 draft is unbelievably loaded. You got 5, 6, 7 guys who are going to be drafted probably in the first 2 rounds, which is just unreal. A lot of good young backs coming into the league over the next couple of years, and this class is 100% loaded. SC, you had 1-5. Where'd you go with it?
Yeah, with there was 4. I mean, I'm happy. 2 years ago, I started buying into Raheem Sanders before he kind of made that name. So I'm kind of like bathing in some glory now that he had that success, and everyone's being like, "Oh, he's the top running back right now." So I'm excited that you brought that up and everything. But with the 1-5, I went with the guy at one of his position as well as that tight end, Brock Bowers from Georgia. And I really think the 1 through 5 where we went is really what the rookie drafts will be like as well. Bowers is just one of those talents that we're seeing that he's just a big do-it-all kind of tight end, similar to like Kyle Pitts. Just has that value that Kyle Pitts is gaining based on his talent. And I think Bowers is just gonna ball. He's gonna go straight into the NFL, be a day 1 starter, and he's gonna help out any quarterback that he's there. And we're gonna see some heavy success from him. Even though the Georgia tight end room is very loaded as well, you're still gonna see Bowers be on top, and he's gonna be a top draft pick.
Oh, Bowers has been the man since his freshman year. I mean, he does everything. He takes jet sweeps and just runs away from everybody. His athleticism is almost unmatched at the tight end spot. As soon the day 1, he is a top 5 dynasty tight end. JT, you had the 1-6. Matter of fact, you have back-to-back picks here.
Yeah, I was gonna just real quick before I mention my picks, like SEC Brock Bowers. I've heard a couple of people go, "Oh, is he a little undersized? Does he put on weight?" I don't think so at all. I think he's gonna, if he finds the right system in the NFL, man, I just feel like he is the next great receiving tight end. I don't care if he blocks a shred. I don't care. I think he is just a mismatch hell for teams. He's just a player. I mean, the things we've seen him do in college is stuff we think about guys in the NFL. We never think of college tight ends doing what he's been doing. I'm all over it. If you're in a premium league or you're in a start 2 tight end, I mean, I could see him going top 3. I really could next year. I love him. And like you guys said, Rocket Sanders, like I was in on Marvin Harrison early. I wish I was in on Rocket Sanders as early. I liked him. I wasn't as high on him, and I missed out on all kinds of opportunities to get him. And I love him. He's my number one back too. I love him. I just missed out on a lot of spaces. So if I don't get Rocket Sanders, the guy I'm going to is Travion Henderson. Now I know his stock is a little low right now. Just because of the injury last year. But man, people are all over him after that freshman year at Ohio State. A little banged up last year. Mayan Williams had a good year without him, but I think he bounces back. I don't think he's a product of the system. I actually think he is a really good talent, low to the ground, can bounce off guys, got good speed. I think he has a bounce back this year, and that's why I took him at 1-6. And then I'm going to bounce back right again, stay on Ohio State Buckeyes, and I'm going to take second wide receiver in there, Amuka Obeke. You know, it's crazy you ever think about the top two guys being on the same team, but Obeke had just an unbelievable year along with Marvin Harrison. After all those guys left, they were both phenomenal. If you can't get Marvin Harrison, Ubeke is my next guy. I like both those guys. I feel like they're both going to be possible first-round picks, early second-round picks in the NFL draft next year.
Yeah, you took Travion Henderson there, and the good thing about that is with it, he may not be a big-time CFF asset, but he is a huge Devy prospect. Main reason he's not going to be a huge CFF guy is just because they're gonna run 3-4 running backs there. It's gonna be Henderson, Mayan Williams, Dallin Hayden, and possibly Evan Pryor even also. All four of them should be considered very Devy viable as well.
Yeah, for me, if you're counting just Devy, not CFF, not C2C, he goes way higher in Devy for me. He maybe slips a little bit if you're looking CFF or you're doing a C2C combined league slightly, but I think he's going to put up good numbers, probably not great numbers, good numbers, but I think his Devy level for the NFL, I think is going to be really high. It's going to be, unless something just disastrous happens this year, it's hard for me to see him falling out of that top 3-4 running backs in the NFL draft.
Sure.
Agreed.
All right, SC, you then had the next pick at the 1-8. Where did you go with that?
That's funny because we're changing QBs in Ohio State, but yet we still have 3 Ohio State people going top 7 there. But that just goes to show what the talent is. Just jam-packed. They continue to bring in class after class, they're bringing in talent, and it shows right here. So I love those picks in the top 7. Number 108, I'm going with a running back that's not coming out this year, but I really like him, and he's definitely an asset. That's Nicholas Singleton from Penn State. Just a bruiser of a running back, man. I loved him out of high school, and he went in as day one as a freshman and just dominated at Penn State, and he's going to continue to do it. He has a great backup there as well in Katron Allen, but I think Nicholas Singleton, if you can get him now, you want to get him before the boom. The boom's already happening, but make sure you go ahead and go get him now when you can probably still afford him. Just because it's like, okay, maybe it's a beginner's luck kind of deal if you find that kind of owner, but you definitely want to go grab it because he's gonna be almost like a Nick Chubb, just a solid 3-down back that could just go pure runner kind of style. But you're starting to see these pure runners also becoming pass catchers because they see that's relevant in the NFL, and so he can kind of do it all itself. And I just like his young talent for Devy leagues or C2C leagues. If you're doing startup C2C leagues, I am not afraid if he's my RB1 on my team.
Definitely not. I personally love Singleton. He is my he's my RB1 on my Devy rankings. I know I took Rocket earlier, but that's mainly just because he's coming out this year and Singleton's still another year away. If him and Singleton were the same class, Singleton would have been my top running back taken. One thing I do want to see from Singleton a little bit more is an ability to run in between the tackles. He's more of a get to the outside and go type of guy. If he could find a little bit more success in between the tackles, I think he is the complete back, the prototypical NFL back.
Yeah, and I was right. I was debating hard between Henderson and Singleton, so I think those guys are right together. I agree with you. I was debating. I was back and forth, and I took Henderson, but I definitely could swap and take Singleton as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have 2 back-to-back picks here. With 1-9, I went with Drew Allar, the quarterback for Penn State. He may end up being the 1-1 in the 2025 NFL draft. He has that type of talent, five-star quarterback out of high school. Just the size and the ability to move and run and drop passes anywhere he wants to drop them. He looks like Josh Allen out there. Pretty similar type of game. He may not have as big of an arm as Allen, but he can play quite a bit like him. And then at 110, I'm taking the first freshman off the board. I'm going Malachi Nelson, quarterback, USC. It's just something about those Lincoln Riley quarterbacks. They just tend to climb draft boards and become big-time NFL players.
Yeah, I like that. With Nelson specifically, I mean, you take Caleb at the 101, right? Because he's probably the 101 in the NFL draft next year. And then, someone that's just going to go in there and not miss a beat as far as their quarterback play is Malachi Nelson. I really like him as a prospect. Don't expect to see a lot of him this year just because it's Caleb's team. But, I think, again, he's going to go in there and all right, it's my team now. So it's going to pay for him to wait, and it's going to pay for you to get him now and wait a year because one of those things, you'll be bathed in glory kind of.
Absolutely. Yeah, I gotta agree with you. Like if I'm playing in a C2C or a CFF combined league sometime, I'm jumping on Nelson this year because you got to assume Caleb Williams gone after this year, the 1-1, and then you're going to get a couple years of Malachi Nelson value. I mean, if I'm in a CFF league, especially if I'm supplemental, so my league's already out, all these guys are off the board, I'm starting a league this year, man, it's going to be tough not to take him 1-1. In a supplemental draft because the value's there. It's too high. You're gonna get tons of years out. I mean, you're getting 2-3 years out of him automatic, and then he should be a high NFL draft pick. Now, again, he's a freshman. It's always a chance, but man, I love his upside. And then Drew Allar, I love him. I like literally outside of May and outside of, like you said, outside of Caleb Williams, he's my favorite guy. I love him in the 25 class. I'm taking him everywhere I can. We talked about our startup league we had for DynastyPro's, and I jumped on Allar pretty early in that league because I wanted to make sure I had him locked up.
Oh yeah, you mentioned Malachi Nelson kind of being in a position to where he's not going to be the guy this year. You have to wait on him. That was kind of what Drew Allar's position was last year. You kind of had to jump on him early, and then just wait for him. But he's definitely going to be worth it.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't get Nelson this year, you're done.
Yeah,
I don't think you can wait. I think if you wait and he wins the starting job at USC next year and goes in after they have a monster year this year, you're going to be too late. You're not going to be able to get him, or you're going to have to spend a ton to get him in a trade. You got to be a year early instead of a year late.
Well, and the good thing with him is that he is going to spend a year just getting acclimated because he probably won't even be the backup quarterback this year. It'll probably be Miller Moss. So Malachi Nelson is going to be able to acclimate to college. And even then you may have like towards the end of the season or the off season next year, you may have guys who have gotten tired of waiting on him, and you may be able to jump on him and get him at a little bit of a deal.
True. That's true. No, just a pure talent. I mean, you're gonna have to do what you can. And yeah, I mean, if you find those guys in your leagues, go grab him, because if they're like, oh, he was a third string quarterback, they didn't believe in him. All right, well, I'll take him off your hands then.
Yeah. Kind of like how people have lost the faith in Jaden Blue, just because he didn't do anything last year. Obviously, Bijan Robinson, Roshan Johnson were in front of him. And then in the bowl game, he didn't do anything, but that doesn't mean he's not a good running back. This year he'll probably have more of a chance Him and Cedric Baxter will end up being the guys there. Maybe Jonathan Brooks. We'll end up seeing on that, but don't lose faith in these high end 5-star guys just because they didn't do anything as a freshman. Not a whole lot of guys actually do that.
Right.
Let's see. SC, you're up with the 111. What do you got here?
Oh, just when you said not a whole lot of guys do that, that's what makes Singleton so special because he came in freshman, But with the 111, man, honestly, this might be high on this guy that I'm taking, the quarterback from Colorado, Shedeur Sanders. I'm all over him. This is one of the ones where I want to buy him before it explodes. We saw what he did at Jackson State, and now he's going to Colorado, Power 5 conference now. We're going to see it. This is really not necessarily a make or break, but it's something where if you have him and it pays off, you're going to be loving it. Because he's going to show, hey, I can go against any kind of defense or, any kind of competition and still succeed. And Colorado's bringing in tons of talent to build around him, So I really like his upside on what can possibly be happening. And honestly, to me, if he comes out in balls, he's going to be QB3 of the 2024 class, behind your Caleb Williams and Drake May. And again, there's a chance where he might not even make the top 10 because it's like, oh wow, this is a whole different conference. He's not ready for it, right? So it's definitely a high risk, high reward kind of deal. But at that point at 111, especially in superflex type leagues, I want to grab a quarterback that has that kind of upside. And for me, I'm going to take Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado.
Yeah, that's actually a good ceiling pick right there. Sanders said, Baby Prime has all the natural talent in the world. And QB3 is really up for grabs in this next year's draft. Nobody really knows who that third quarterback's going to be. Is it going to be Shedeur Sanders? Is it going to be Quinn Ewers? Is it going to be Riley Leonard or Joe Milton or whoever? That's still TBD. So Sanders is not a bad pick right there.
Yeah, I was actually just having this conversation about Sanders with some people the other day going, how high do you take him either in a startup or a Devy, just Devy, or in a C2C league, especially if it's supplemental? And I think all those values are slightly different. I think in a straight Devy, you take him a little later. I don't know if I take him as high in a straight Devy, but I absolutely love him in a C2C just because what SC said. If he blows up this year, you could have QB3 on your hands. If he doesn't hit huge, I still think he can have a really good offensive season. I still think he can put up numbers. So say he takes a year to really get into the groove. You get a year of CFF production with the chance that maybe he even jumps higher the year after, and he's 1, 2, or 3 the year after. So in a C2C league, I absolutely am jumping on him maybe an earlier than you probably should because of what, as he said, the ceiling is just so high, and you're going to have a little bit of extra wiggle room with him in case he comes back for a year. So I'm telling you, I'm in a C2C league that's going to draft here pretty soon, and I'm already eyeing him at this exact spot that SC just took him is where my pick is. And Sanders is where I'm looking at. He's the guy I'm kind of eyeing, even though there's going to be some of those stud freshmen out there. I'm thinking I might skip those guys and go Sanders with that pick in the first round, which might seem a little high, but I just love the opportunity he can put up points for you on the college side, and that he could be that top 3 QB either next year or the year after.
Yep.
That's what I love about Sanders.
Yeah, that was a very solid pick right there. JT, you're up to finish off the first round here. What do you got, bud?
Quinshon Judkins. I absolutely love this guy. I'm mad at myself for not taking him in more leagues last year. He kind of hit right off the bat. I just, if I'm in a league where he hasn't gone or I'm in a new startup, I'm all over Judkins. I just think he has got all kinds of ability and skill. I just love his tenacity. The thing was, he wasn't a high 5-star or even a high 4-star. This guy was a 3-star and came in and absolutely balled out in the SEC. I love that. That's a guy that wants to grind. That's a guy that's got a chip on his shoulder. I just love everything about him. He is right up there with me with the top 3 running backs that we've already selected. When I got him at this spot, I was pumped to get him at this spot. I love him, and he might have one of the coolest jerseys in the league. That light blue number 4 Ole Miss jersey. I might have to get online and order one. They're just so cool. I want one so bad.
Yeah, those powder blue jerseys are pretty sick. And Judkins, like you said, he really came out of nowhere. That job was supposed to be Zach Evans' job, and he just straight up took it from him.
And it's funny because he's a reason why I'm kind of fading Zach Evans, in Los Angeles right now with the Rams. Everyone was so high, like, oh, he's there. He has opportunity. We don't know what's happening with Cam. Will he succeed? And that's why, for me, I'm like targeting Tyon Evans. And he was an undrafted guy because I'm like, I've already seen Zach Evans lose the job, not once, but twice, because he lost it to Kendre Miller also. But then he goes and loses it to Junkins, the freshman. I love this kid. And, yeah, he's going to have high value. And really, I mean, he wasn't even on my boards prior to. But then, during the season, I'm like, wait, what's happening over there? This isn't Zach Evans running the Brock anymore. And, he just came on my radar. And he's someone that, yeah, if you can target him, I think this is great. And you're not taking him over Singleton, but, he could be, that fourth running back, like you're saying, JT.
Yep. JT, you are actually up to start round 2 also.
So this pick, I have to be honest with you. I made the pick. I didn't love it. I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to go with this guy. There's other guys I like personally better, but the value here is what made me lean towards this pick. I took Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers. Just for the value. I know so many people like him, and he's a guy where if I had the opportunity to take him, I might be looking to move him to someone who is a Texas fan or just is in love with him. I think he has a chance to really flourish this year and get he just was okay last year. He just was okay. But I think everyone has talked about him for so much. I think the hype is still out there. I think the hype is real. I took him here for value, even though I have to be honest, the 3 guys that went after him, all 3 of those guys, I was probably thinking about taking here instead. But then I looked at it and I said, if it isn't me personally, if I'm looking at value pick, I'm taking Ewers at the second round.
Well, Ewers was really, really good to start the season last year and then got hurt. He hurt his shoulder and was just never the same whenever he came back. But he was lighting Alabama up early on in that game until he got hurt.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Value pick here, I think, in the second round. Because, I mean, I think if you look last year, this guy's top 5 in most picks last year preseason. So that's what I'm saying. At this point, I'm not totally sold, but I also am aware that the value is there at 2-1 compared to where he was going, any one thing from 1-1 to 1-5 in a lot of Devy's last year. At this point, I think you got to jump on him because the upside is there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if he blows up and just, absolutely comes out and is who everyone said they thought he could be since high school, you're looking at, a legit first round NFL draft pick. So that's why you have to take, I think especially with QB, you're talking about either super flex or 2 QB, you got to take the QB value.
Definitely. And if you watch the Texas spring game at all, he was dropping dimes out there. He looked great.
And he's someone that I think you can kind of compare to Will Levis as far as that draft capital, where he might be talked about like a first round quarterback, but then he doesn't make it to the first round, but then someone trades up in that second to get him, so he becomes a hot commodity come draft season next year as well. Just because he starts, there's the quarterback battle happening there. But I think Ewers goes out there, he's getting another weapon in the Donnie Mitchell out there, still has Jatavion Sanders, so I think Xavier Ward, he still has weapons there, and as long as he's healthy, I think we can see a great season. As we all said before, QB3 still for grabs, and it could very well be Ewers there.
Yep, most definitely. Pick 202 is SC here. Let's go and move along with you there, bud.
Yeah, man, the running back position, wide receivers are so deep, and I treat this Devy mock as, we're actually drafting. We have a three team league going on, right? So I went with Braylon Allen. I just think right now he's the RB3 of that 2024 class. Just a beast out of Wisconsin. I love his running style, and I think he's just definitely gonna be someone that's a possible. Maybe late day one if he has a phenomenal season, but definitely maybe a day two, round three NFL draft pick. And I think you have a lot of talent there. And in the college league itself, he's going to go out there and dominate. So he's definitely someone you want on your rosters. And to have him come in, next year for you, that'll be awesome for your team.
Yeah, and they're also kind of switching up their offense over at Wisconsin. Luke Fickell took that job, and he's going to bring a little bit more of a passing mentality, which is going to take a lot of the pressure off Braylon Allen. He won't be expected to just carry the entire load. He's able to do that. I mean, he's very Derrick Henry-esque, just very solidly built, runs similar style, kind of that upright. I'm going, and then I'm going to dip my shoulder and run you over. I can stiff arm the hell out of you, and then just keep going. He has plenty of speed in order to be able to run away, and he is a bruiser. I'd like to see what he can do in the passing game also. Of course, as you've seen with Derrick Henry, that doesn't really hinder him very much either. So,
yeah.
All right. 2-3 looks like it's mine. I took Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri. This guy's Deebo Samuel. I mean, if you just look at him and watch the way he plays, he's exactly what Deebo Samuel is. Same size, same build, same attributes, same style. He is Deebo Samuel, and if you can get Deebo Samuel early in the first part of the second round of a Devy draft, you would definitely have done that. So taking Luther Burden here was very much a steal in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. This is the guy I thought about taking over Ewers. And then if he was going to get back to me, Burden was going to be my first guy I was taking back. So you stole him from me a little bit. You can see all my Missouri stuff behind me. I mean, he's with Dominic Levitt leaving to go to Georgia, I mean, he might be one of the most talented, if not the most talented wide receiver to ever go to Missouri. I think the Deebo Samuels comparison is spot on. I don't think he's just a pure receiver as far as receiving talent goes. I just think he's a football player who makes plays, and that's why I like what you said with Deebo. I think he's a guy you can get the ball in his hands a bunch of different ways, and he just is going to use his talent. But I love him everywhere, and I think with better QB play this year, I think you're going to see his stats, which were pretty good for a true freshman, to be honest with you. A true freshman in the SEC were pretty solid with not very good quarterback play. Depending on who wins that job in Missouri this year, I think you can see Luther Burden's stats going way up this year.
Well, the guy's built like a running back, so he has that thick lower half and just able to just barrel through corners. We had mentioned Braylon Allen earlier, kind of comped him to Derrick Henry. I could easily see Luther Burden doing the same type of stiff arm to a corner out there on the edge, catching the screen and just going.
Yeah, he's a monster.
Yep. Let's see. 2-4 was also mine. I went with the first freshman running back here. Went Cedric Baxter Jr., running back out of Texas. Like I said, don't lose faith in Jaden Blue, but Cedric Baxter, in my opinion, is the best running back in this class. Him and Justice Haynes, and then I don't think it's really. I think those are the top two, and I don't think it's even close. Moving on from those guys, they're 1 and 2, and then it's everybody else after them.
Yeah, Tommy, I was going to say, if you're in a supplemental this year. Like you said, we've already had all your draft last year, or you're a couple years in to your C2C league. I got this guy number 1. He's my number 1 available running back. All those other guys are most likely off the board. If that's the case, I've got him at the top of my list. he's probably my number one guy I want in a supplemental draft. Now the question is, where are you drafting? If you're at the end of the first round, I don't think there's any way he gets to you. If he does, you just scored gold. But I'm with you. I think Baxter is the guy in this class. I love what he could do with Texas. I just think that offense is on the way up, no matter who's. They just got so many guys. Baxter's probably my number one target if I'm looking at a running back, and I'm not in a startup. That, if I'm in a startup and I got Singleton and I've got Sanders and all those guys available, I'm going those guys first. Baxter's slightly behind him, but if all those guys are gone, Baxter's my guy.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, if you can hit him Baxter in your draft, you're only going to gain in value. Whereas if you miss on him, it's going to cost you a pretty penny, to get him. It's almost what the King's ransom was for Bijan. I'm not going to compare him to Bijan, but as far as the value he was at the 101, this is what Baxter's going to be. This is just his freshman season. He's only going to get better as he accumulates to the college system, as he goes into that Big 12 and continues to just shine. I mean, just a great, phenomenal back. And, he's definitely the 101. And, you're going to struggle if it's like, okay, Cape Klubnik, who I'm taking next, or not Cape Klubnik, I mean, Malachi Nelson or Nico Adamavila, or Cedric Baxter. If they're all there for you to say a 1-2 for whatever reason, it's like, all right, where am I going to go? Even though it's a super flex league, there's a lot of talent for Baxter going there.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys look back a year ago and you look at Nicholas Singleton, people were going crazy over him. I just see that Cedric Baxter is going to have that type of hype to him, and by the end of his career, I could easily see him as getting that same type of Nicholas Singleton love moving into the draft.
Agreed.
All right, SC, you had mentioned your next pick here. Why don't you go ahead and expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, Kate Klubnik from Clemson. I mean, you took Drew Allar earlier. I think this is the QB2 in that 2025 class. Just someone, as I mentioned in our quarterback show that we did, he's very fluid, man. I just love his movement. He's very elegant the way he moves and the way he throws his ball. He's just kind of just like a Van Gogh type of painting, just how he throws it and how he's moving in the backfield. And that's something I really like in those quarterbacks. He kind of like nothing really phases him. If he throws an interception, he forgets about it the next play. Just smart quarterback. And I think if you're getting him at 205 in the Superflex league, that's a huge steal for you in your C2C or your Devy leagues, because he's someone that I think he's going to continue to shine, and he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks taken off in 2025.
Yeah, he for me. If I can't get Allar is my first guy I'm looking for. If I can't get him, I'm doing what I can to get Klubnik. I agree with SC. He's my number 2 guy. You're gonna get CFF and C2C value out of him for the next couple years, and then I think he's got a huge upside at QB. And the good thing is for him, we've seen some of these smaller QBs get drafted of recently. And he's not tiny by any means, but he's only about 6'1", 6'2". I think they got him listed at 195. He can probably beef up a little bit eventually. But again, him not having to be 6'5", 240, I think helps out that he's seeing some of these other guys go higher in the draft. So that gives me a little bit more hope that his Devy side is a little bit higher. But as he said, I think he's a smooth quarterback. I think him getting the full offseason and going in as the man this year for Clemson is going to be a huge difference for him.
Well, and then them also bringing in their new offensive coordinator is just going to really feature him in that passing game. And also he has wheels. The guy can move. He can outrun defenders. He can get to the outside. He's tough. And Garrett Riley, his new offensive coordinator, is just going to put him in the best possible position to make plays.
Great.
All right. So next looks like JT has back-to-back picks here.
Yeah, here's where I wanted Luther Burden if you got to me, and you snaked him from me. It was a great pick by you. So I jumped into the very next 2 guys, same class as him that I think are right up there with him. And Everett Stewart, wide receiver, Texas A&M, and then right after him at 2.7, I took Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, LSU. I think those guys, Burden, I think, is the more all around guy. I think Stewart has a shot to be maybe the more pure wide receiver. And I like Neighbors. I just think he's got a huge ceiling. QB play, kind of like with, like you said, with Burden is like, how's that going to work out for his CFF stats or his C2C? Those are a little more iffy for me, but I mean, man, he put up pretty good numbers with not the best quarterback play. And you figure out LSU, they're going to figure out QB pretty quick, with their head coach of Brian Kelly and everything. You figure they're going to make that work this year. So those were the next two guys. Burden was my guy. I was eyeing there, but with no Burden, Evan Stewart, I felt like is the guy, the next pick there. And then right after him, I'm real high on Malik Neighbors. And I just feel like people were kind of on Stewart last year. I think a lot of people weren't on Neighbors yet. And now's the time to buy Neighbors before he just goes, before he goes to the roof as far as value. Right now it's a steal for him. I think that mid to late second round's a good spot to pick him up.
Oh, most definitely. I think I've got Evan Stewart as my wide receiver too in that 2025 class, just right behind Luther Burden. So that was definitely a very solid pick. Malik Neighbors is, like you said, there wasn't a lot of people that were just extremely high on him going into last season, and then he just blew up. It was supposed to be Keyshawn Boutte, and he really struggled out of the gate. So they looked towards Neighbors, and he did not disappoint.
Yeah, I mean, you think about Neighbors out in LSU. I mean, before this Ohio State started trending towards wide receiver U, it was LSU, right? You had Jefferson, you had Chase. Neighbors could definitely be a great talent coming there. And again, what we talked about with the guy for Ole Miss earlier today, that if he goes out there, Franklin, and does great, any wide receiver that goes out there and dominates an SEC versus a dominant defense, I mean, you could raise them on your draft boards all day, and that just helps it regenerate. The other receivers can ball in other conferences, but if you're balling in the SEC, that's going to raise your draft stock across the board, because they're like, oh, this is the defensive city, right? This is a defensive conference, and these guys are still putting up numbers. That's something to look at. I mean, Evan Stewart, he's also an SEC. I keep forgetting A&M's there as well. So, I mean, both those guys can go out there and dominate, and if you can grab them, they're definitely going to be hot for you going into the pro leagues.
Most definitely. Actually, SC, you are up next, buddy.
Yeah, 208. Quidson and Nick Singleton, definitely your RB1, RB2 was looking like, but I'm not losing hope on Branson Robinson. We might honestly just get one good season out of him at Georgia, but that's going to be enough. I mean, coming out of high school, this kid was like squatting like over 720 or 750, something like that in high school. This is just a built beast. They talk about, Quadzilla, AJ Dillon. This guy's quads are massive. I mean, he's just someone that's just a huge power runner. He's a bruiser. He's been come to Nick Chubb. His high school tape is more like a Leonard Fournette, when he was going in there. And if he's bringing that kind of combo, Leonard Fournette, Nick Chubb, I'm all in on him. And I just think Georgia produces running backs, and if you can get the next Nick Chubb, why not make it with Branson Robinson? Again, we might just see one good season of him at Georgia just because they have running backs. It's cycling them, but it's not going to be one that you're going to want to miss out on. So if you can grab him, I'm definitely all over him.
Yeah, Branson Robinson looked like a grown man since he was like 12 years old. So, that's pretty incredible, actually. The thing with Georgia running backs is, it was like you said, they kind of cycle them. So they're more running back by committee. That doesn't make Branson Robinson not Devy viable. He is a big time Devy prospect, just because the NFL is going to fall in love with this guy, especially whenever he actually does start getting doesn't have to have a lot of carries, just even a few. And the guy's going to blow up, especially whenever it comes to combine season here in a couple years.
Right.
I'm super excited about Robinson. I think he could be an absolute stud. I'm excited to see him on the field. I know they were super deep at running back. He didn't get many chances last year, but man, if he shows anything, I feel like this guy's a Devy stud. Like I said, I think, like you guys said, I think the NFL is going to love him no matter what he does in college, as far as like stat wise is concerned. CFF, they've been known to run the ball. Will they throw the ball a little bit more with some of the quarterbacks they've had and wideouts they got the last couple of years? Possibly, but Devy wise, Robinson, man, I think you're right, SC. If you don't get him now, I think there's no way you're getting him again. I think everybody, if he even plays remotely decent this year, he is going to fly up the charts.
Right now in that class, I mean, everyone's going towards Quinson and Singleton because we saw them freshman year, right? So he's kind of falling down some boards because, like, oh, maybe he's not what we thought. He didn't get the playing time. Don't sleep on him. I think he's gonna be great.
I could easily see him passing those guys. If he plays solid, I could see him jumping up to number one pretty easily.
Right.
It's very possible. Let's see. Okay, I guess I'm up next here. I've got back-to-back picks here. 2-9. I went. I'm actually. It looks like I'm taking a lot of the first freshmen here. Brandon Enos, wide receiver out of Ohio State. I know he has not enrolled at Ohio State yet, so he didn't go through spring. Everybody fell in love with Carnell Tate during spring practice and their spring game, but Brandon Enos is as consistent as they get. I have him as my number one wide receiver in the 2026 class. He's got that kind of Ohio State size, is that typical Ohio State mold of a wide receiver. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, JSN, 6'1", 6'2", has a good frame, runs precise, crisp routes. Obviously, nobody else is Marvin Harrison Jr. That guy is just a freak at 6'4", and the way he's able to run and the routes he's able to run. But Enos is going to be as close to a Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave as you're going to end up finding.
Agreed. It's funny. I'm gonna start calling you like the wide receiver sniper because he was talking about that he wanted Luther Burden. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take Robertson because Enos will make it back to me on my next pick. And the next pick, he took him. And I was like, that was a great pick. I love that pick.
Yeah, just my little 2 cents on Enos. I like him a ton. Again, they're loaded at wide receiver. They are every year. Something about this guy. He just seems like a dog. He just seems like a guy that's just going to go out, get physical. He doesn't seem like a prima donna. He seems like a dude just wants to work and be just tough as nails. Man, I don't know. There's going to be a lot of guys. It's going to be hard to fit your way in there. But like you said, they've just been bringing in studs. And my biggest question for me with him is where do I get him? Like, how long do I wait to see if he gets to me? Or do I like jump up to try to make sure I don't lose out on him? So it's definitely going into the summer trying to figure out where I'm taking guys. He's one of those guys that I'm looking at. It's like, can I wait to mid-second? Can I wait till early third, or do I got to jump on early and make sure I get him?
He's someone that we might not even see him year one, right? I mean, you just look at Ohio State. We might not even know it, but if you're already on top of him and you know what he's about, I mean, it's gonna be worth. It's one of those take it because the value is gonna be there when he starts getting some playing time. So that's what I love about some of these players is you get them before they're hot, and then guess what? If they're hot and you need some value, get that back and some. And I think Ennis is just going to do that, And also he's coming from American Heritage, a top high school that has great competition, goes against great competition. So he's not going to be faded by, the going to Ohio State and being like, oh, the competition level is different. No, he already knows what competition is like. He's played in some big games, and it's going to go in there and not phase him once he gets a shot.
Well, there's been a couple of Ohio State wide receivers that have kind of been pushed to the side and even have started transferring out. I mean, you look at Caleb Burton, he transferred out. You have guys like Jalen Ballard and Kion Graves that have kind of lost their luster a little bit. Kion Graves was a big time prospect coming in last year, and he was a big time Devy prospect. People loved him and never saw the field, and I don't know if he ever will it. They're in Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Ennis literally completely redshirting this year and not be seeing any time at all with how loaded they are at wide receiver. But he's a guy, like you said, I would be willing to wait on him that he has huge upside and could eventually be that guy. I like him a lot. I'm probably going to try not to reach on him, but yeah, I'm willing to take him, even if that means, waiting a year or two to see any kind of production from him.
Yep.
Oh yeah. My next pick here with 210. I went with Donovan Edwards, running back out of Michigan. I think he is supremely talented. I think he is more NFL ready than what his teammate Blake Corum is. Even though Corum is a great runner, I don't necessarily see him as a great NFL back. I see Donovan Edwards as a potential great NFL running back.
I was a little disappointed to see Corum not leave and come back, as far as if you're in on Donovan Edwards, because I wanted to see Donovan Edwards get the backfield to himself this year to see what he could do. Like you said, I'm not hating on Blake Corum. He's a really good college running back. I don't see him making it at the next level. I just don't. He's too small. And that Michigan O-line was just dominant last year. So I wanted to see what Donovan Edwards has. You're gonna see him this year, but how much you're gonna see him with Corum is a little bit of an iffy. But yeah, I really want to see Edwards have the stage to himself at Michigan this year is what I was really, really hoping more. That's the only reason he's dropped a little bit in my Devy rankings, is only because I think he's going to share that time, especially CFF, C2C side. I'm like, he's probably not going to give me that much. So he's going to drop on that side for me, just because I'm like, I want a guy that's going to give me a little more production on the college side. But like you said, elite receiving skills. I can see him end up being that guy that we talk about with very marginal college numbers that ends up being an absolute stud in the pros, because he just never got the full load in college, and he goes to the pros and he does everything the pros like.
Well, you saw what he did towards the end of the season whenever Corum was hurt. He lit everybody up. I mean, he was tearing the field up. It looked like the best player out there. So I kind of look at Edwards in the same vein I look at Trevion Henderson. Is they don't have to carry the load. Henderson has 2-3 other guys that Ohio State's is going to depend on along with him. And with Edwards having Corum, they're going to have a lot of tread left on the tire whenever they get to the NFL. So they're not going to be all beat up and have nothing left.
And I like Corum. And the funny thing is, I would take Donovan Edwards over Corum in a Devy draft, but in a straight college draft or C2C, I'm probably taking Corum over him.
Right.
I think Corum's just that better college running back. They're both great, but I think Corum has more upside in college, where Donovan Edwards, he's going to be the better pro prospect. So that'll be the difference there for me when I'm drafting these guys. And both could be great. We can have a great 1-2 punch. We see that a lot in college, but when it comes to the pro side or your Devy ones, I'm definitely going Edwards over Corum.
Yeah, I agree with SC on that exact take.
Yep. All right, SC, you're up, buddy. 211 here.
Yeah, I'm going with I believe this is the quarterback 2 in the freshman class, Dante Moore at UCLA. Just a phenomenal talent, someone that climbed my ranks as far as the freshman coming in over the past couple of months. He just could go in there kind of. I think he's going to end up taking the spot, but we'll see. He might rest or it might be a quarterback battle going in. But really just kind of pick up where Dorian Thompson-Robinson left off and just be an all-around great quarterback for that team specifically. He can run around. He can escape the pocket when he needs to, but he can make the throws. I don't know yet if he's really that quarterback that we're going to see heavy in the pros, but I really do like him for your college leagues, and he's definitely a great prospect to have in your Devy drafts, especially in Superflex, because, coming in as a freshman with the talent he has, the sky's the limit. So I really like him here, and I think he's the quarterback 2 in this class behind Malachi.
I agree with that, and actually, I heard something the other day with Chip Kelly talking about how much he loves Dante Moore's presence. Even if he doesn't start right away, because they did bring in Colin Schlee out of Kent State, so I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of a competition there. But if Moore doesn't end up taking that job immediately, that's not really an indictment on him. Colin Schlee is a very good college quarterback in his own right. But Dante Moore, 6'2", 210. He's got pretty decent size to him. And if they're already talking about, he's a professional quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He just has that type of aura, that type of presence. I think he's going to do big things for the Bruins.
The reason why I wouldn't take him is simply because I'm in Oregon, and he did he did commit to Oregon at first, but then Bo Nix, for whatever reason, said I'm coming back, and then Moore's like, all right, I'm going to UCLA. So I might hold that grudge against him, but I mean, if you can grab him, he's definitely great to have there.
That would have been a pretty loaded quarterback room with Bo Nix and Ty Thompson and Austin Novosad, and then Dante Moore also. That'd be crazy.
I can pull up text messages of me talking to one of my buddies saying Dante Moore just committed to Oregon, and then a few weeks later, all right, he's back at UCLA. He's not going to Oregon. There's sad faces everywhere.
Well, I think what you brought up was a good point. I mean, yeah, these are freshmen. I think we're excited for these guys to hit right away, especially at QB. But man, that's a big change from high school. I don't care if you're on one of the best high schools in America. It's a big change from high school to college. And just because these guys sit, I don't think that, like you said, it's not an indictment on them or their talent at all. I think sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to figure it out. And I think, college coaches, unlike the NFL, where the NFL is going to play the draft pick, the high capital guy, they're doing that. In college, they want the experienced guy. Most college coaches are going to go experience over talent most of the time just because they're more comfortable with it. That's just the way college coaches think. And so if he comes in and doesn't start, to me, that does not scare me off one bit off him. I think he's the guy of the future there. But like you said, an older guy transferring in, I would not be surprised if he starts all year. We don't see more at all, or just a little bit of him this year, and then he takes over next year. But I think that's something to always think about is we expect these guys to hit right away in college, and it's a step up. I don't care where you're from.
Yeah, I mean, most of the big time quarterbacks were not day one starters. I mean, Peyton Manning was not a day one starter at Tennessee. It was Jerry Colquitt, and then it was Todd Helton. Then Todd, I don't know where I was. Tim Tebow. He had Chris Leak in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, guys don't necessarily automatically come in and run day one, and but they still end up great. We have examples even this coming year. Malachi Nelson, he's going to sit. Nico Iamaleava going to sit. So don't let that run you off from some of these guys that have great potential to them. Bryce Young sat. He redshirted his freshman year, sat behind Mac Jones. Tua
exactly. And I think, like we talked about, sitting sometimes is better for these guys. Sometimes it's better not to throw them right in the fire and have them get beat up and lose a little confidence. Because, man, having that secure confidence in yourself is what makes these guys great. And so having that great confidence, having that year where you can learn from somebody older, maybe more mature, maybe not better than you. I guess most of these guys still think they're better than that guy, which I love. They should think they're better. But getting that year to learn, kind of figure out the system, figure out what coaches want. What do they want out of you? What are they looking for? I don't think at the college level that's as big of a miss as when you go to the NFL and you're like, oh, this guy's sitting for a year or two in the NFL. Like, to me, that's more of an indictment on a guy than it is in college. You expect that little bit of that learning curve. And I think sometimes us as prognosticators or fantasy football players or just analysts, we get a little excited when we want to see these guys right away. And I think sometimes it actually is beneficial for them all around sometimes to sit that year, especially when you're at a stud program with a million other 5-4-star guys in front of you.
Agreed.
Yeah, most definitely. JT, that's actually going to bring you up to close out the round.
Yeah, so here for me. So I took this pick purely on potential. I don't, like we just talked about, I could see him not playing much at all this year, or I could see him being a stud just because of the talent there. I went Alabama running back Justice Haynes. I've been hearing great things about the spring game, what he's done in the spring with them, just kind of the elite athlete he's looking like. Now, there's a good chance. I mean, they trust Chase McClellan at running back, and I think there's a good chance he ends up being the number one for most of the year for Alabama. But can Justice Haynes work his way in there, show some magic, get people excited about him, and then him be the guy next year? I think so. I took this pick completely Devy side, even CFF, C2C side. If I have Justice Haynes, do I think I'm getting a lot out of him this year? I'm probably not expecting a lot. In Devy, I'm taking him because the upside is just there for him to be the next stud Alabama running back. So I'm higher on him than Devy. C2C, I still love him because, again, maybe he doesn't, end up winning the job this year outright, but you're going to get a couple more years out of him. Upside's just there. I know there's a million studs in that backfield. Mm-hmm. He's the guy I'm leaning towards at Alabama. If you're looking upside future, Justice Haynes is my guy.
Yeah, I mean, they're at Alabama. They kind of do the same thing that Georgia does and kind of rotates in different running backs. You're going to have Jace McClellan. You're going to have Jamarian Miller. You're going to have Justice Hayes. You may even have Roydell Williams come in a little bit there. Just like I said, Justice Haynes. But then there's also the other freshman, Richard Young, who has a lot of talent also. But Justice Haynes could end up just destroying guys here over the next couple of years.
With Haynes and Richard Young, I mean, both those guys you might not see, but I think both those guys are worth some looks at because they can definitely be a great thunder and lightning duo there. I mean, you have one that has speeds and one that just has some bruising power. And, I really like both of them as prospects. And like he was saying, Alabama is one of those colleges where I just want a piece of the running back room, because their running backs produce. So if you can grab them, when they're haven't stepped on the field yet, but hey, you're going to get some playing time down the road, I would take that because the high upside is definitely there for the colleges like Alabama that know how to produce those running backs and utilize them in college as well.
Yeah, and even if they end up transferring out somewhere else, they're still going to have great value. I mean, look at guys like Alvin Kamara. He was part of that backfield and then transferred out. Right. Kamar Wheaton, a couple years ago, he was a big time running back coming in out of high school, transferred out, went to SMU now. So I mean, those guys are still going to have value. So if somebody like Justice Haynes or Richard Young doesn't like where they're at on the depth chart and they want to move on and be dominant somewhere else, they'll still have value.
Agreed.
All right, JT, you are starting round 3 for us. Let's get this thing kicked off.
Yeah, so round 3 here. You took my guy, Cedric Baxter, earlier. So at this point, I was like, hey, I'm jumping in on the number 2 guy in the freshman class. Huge upside, just stud athlete as far as just talent, speed, everything else. We just saw what Devin Achane did at Texas A&M and where he went in the draft and now where he's going in rookie mock drafts. And that's got me super excited about Ruben Owens and what he can do at Texas A&M. He's my number 2 freshman running back. I like what they're doing talent-wise there. If they can ever figure out the quarterback situation at A&M and get a guy to just completely ball, I think some of these guys like Stewart and Owens are going to have huge years. I just love his makeup. I love his speed. I love his athleticism. And again, we're seeing the league kind of moving adjusted towards smaller guys. So even though he's not huge, he's got nice size now. I think that translates better to the next level than maybe it did 5 or 10 years ago. So I'm jumping on Ruben Owens.
How do you think that backfield shakes out with him and Le'Veon Moss?
Again, that's a question mark. I would not be surprised if Moss kind of gets considered number 1 on the depth chart and Owens is behind him. But as we've seen in college, it's a lot easier to play 2 RBs consistently in college and have them both produce than it is in the pros. Just so many more plays per game, up tempo, everything they do, especially when you get some of these leagues where it's offense, and a lot of the defenses can't stop. Even if Owens goes in as RB2, I'm still in on him. Devy, I'm in on him, and I actually think he still could produce for UCFF. C2C. I still think he could be a solid producer there. True freshman, you never know how much a true freshman is going to get a run. But even if he doesn't, and say he redshirted or only plays a little bit, I don't think that's going to scare me off going into sophomore year.
I think Moss is going to go in there as a starter when we see the beginning of the season, but I think throughout the season, Ruben Owens may be the guy at the end of the season. If he gets a shot, I just think he's going to take it and run away with it. That's going to be, sorry, Moss, you had your opportunity. I definitely think it's a great duo there that they'll have. And I just think if they have to transition to single instead of running them both, that Ruben Owens will end up taking that by the end of the season.
Yeah, I think what benefits Ruben Owens there is that in the offseason, LJ Johnson transferred out and went to SMU. So that kind of it depleted their backfield depth a little bit. So I definitely see him and Moss splitting that backfield at least in kind of a 60-40 type of split. I don't necessarily see it being 50-50, but 60-40 kind of on the Moss side.
Yeah, I agree with you.
SC, you have 3-2. Where you at?
So I was looking at the draft where we're at, and I went. I think it was 4 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, and a tight end before we got to here. And so I skipped on wide receivers, and it wasn't because there weren't on the board. It's just every time I was trying to get wide receivers, like, oh, they'll make it back to me, then y'all took them. But now I come here and I see Troy Franklin, and I'm like, all right, this is someone you have to take a shot on. With him and Bo Nix, I think we're going to have a star season, just to kind of air it out for them, where he's just going to rise the draft boards and possibly be the wide receiver 3, definitely a top 5 wide receiver in this upcoming class, and I'm really excited to get him. But I mean, the depth is there at wide receiver, and we're still talking about talent for these wide receivers, guys that can jump your draft boards and be at the top. I love Troy Franklin's size. I love what he can do. I do want him to get a little bit bulkier, but I definitely think he's going to have a phenomenal season out in Oregon this year.
Yeah. Do you see him continuing to be a return guy also?
Yeah, I mean, well, probably not. I mean, they brought in some guys outside as well, so I think we'll see more on the receiving side for him, and they'll kind of ease him away just so it saves his energy for him. You'll still see at the beginning of the season. That's just what Oregon likes to do, is get their fast guys back there, and he's quick. But I think we'll definitely see him more on the receiving side than special teams, because this is going to be the year that Oregon's like, all right, we got to make sure all our stars are rested when they're on the field, and we don't need them to be in everywhere like that.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty nasty wide receiver room. Him, and then they brought in Tez Johnson, Jurion Dickey, obviously big 5-star wide receiver coming in. They're going to be pretty dynamic in that room.
Agreed.
Yeah, I thought it was a great pick. I mean, if I didn't take Owens, honestly, I was flipping a coin between Owens and Franklin here. I was like, oh, I like Franklin a lot. Especially if I'm looking at C2C, I'm probably taking Franklin, because I know I'm going to get elite production out of him with Bo Nix, and it looks like Nix has finally figured it out. So I if I'm going C2C, I'm probably leaning Franklin over Owens, just because I feel like I'm going to get more production out of this year. But again, if it's a supplemental draft, Franklin's already off the board, then I'm going Owens first. But I'd love to see Franklin add a little more weight. But again, I'm not scared of that. I love Jordan Addison, coming out this year from USC. And I just think he's a baller. And I think if Franklin does the same thing this year, it's not going to scare me if he's only 175. I think if you put up a little weight, I still think it's all right.
I mean, Devontae Smith came into the league at right around 170. So, I mean, he's proven to be perfectly fine.
That's fair.
All right. I've got back-to-back picks here. At 3-3, I ended up going with Jonte Cook II, wide receiver out of Texas. One of my absolute favorite wide receiver prospects. He participated in spring practice this year. Had a pretty monster catch. I think he had a 79-yard touchdown grab in that game. So he looks like the next big thing there at Texas. Going to continue to grow with Quinn Ewers this year, and then possibly either Malik Murphy or Arch Manning over the next couple. I'm a big fan of Jonte Cook. Is like you guys were saying, kind of slight of frame, has a little bit of room to grow, but I see him being extremely dynamic on the field.
No, I love Cook. I think that's something where he's gonna show. I took Wardy later, but I think Cook can also be that wide receiver one there for that team. He just has it all, and I'm really excited to see what he'll do in Texas this year for them.
Yeah, adding Cook here is what kind of made me lean a little more to Ewers earlier. I just think they're putting all kinds of talent around him, a wide receiver, running back. I just think he's going to have every opportunity to really step it up this year with all these guys around him. I just think they're putting elite talent down there in Texas. And I think the more guys they can add to Worthy, it helps add Worthy to the mix and gives him a little bit more value. And it makes it easier to get him the ball with some of these more talented guys around him.
Well, here's the thing with Cook. I don't necessarily see him being any more than a wide receiver 4 or 5 for them this year either. They got Worthy, they got Mitchell, they got Nayor. Isn't Whittington still there also, or he? I believe he may still be there. Then you got Jatavian Sanders. So I mean, he's not going to be immediate. He doesn't have to immediately be thrown into the fire. Even though I believe he could be, and thrive. I don't think he's necessarily going to have to be.
Well, and I think this is you're not necessarily picking him to be the guy this year. Right. I mean, they're stacking up freshman talent all over there. I mean, if you're looking at Texas right now, you're looking at any of these guys are drafting, Baxter, him. Texas has got themselves set up for a resurgence here. And so you're expecting these guys in a year or 2 or 3 that this Texas team should be top 5, top 10 at worst, you would think, with the type of talent they're bringing in. And so that's what I'm looking at when I'm seeing some of these guys like, yeah, maybe he's 4th or 5th on the depth chart this year. But, man, this team has got a ton of talent, a ton of other good freshmen, a ton of other good sophomores. This guy could be elite in the next year or 2. That's kind of how I look at it.
Well, they probably brought in the second best wide receiving class next to Ohio State, obviously. They brought in Cook. They brought in Ryan Niblett. They brought in DeAndre Moore. Those guys are studs also. Jonte Cook is just the best of them.
Hey, you look at, they brought in Arch Manning, and when you bring in the freshman quarterback and freshman wide receiver, it's definitely something to take a gamble on, because it's like these are just going to elevate because they're going to grow together. It's not he's learning to play with a new quarterback ranked like that. So if Arch Manning goes in there and balls out, guess who's on the opposite side? More likely it's going to be Jonte Cook there for him.
Yep. My next pick here, I've been heavy with the freshmen. I'll continue to be heavy with the freshmen. I don't care. I love this class. It's tremendous. Wide receiver out of USC, Zachariah Branch. Him and his incoming teammate, Mekhi Lemon, are going to be an outstanding duo for Southern Cal. Zachariah Branch has such a great base to him, such great balance. He's not the biggest guy, but plays with plenty of burst and power. Can break through tackles, can run away from guys, can make moves on them. He's going to be one of the best wide receivers in that 2026 class.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love the freshman class. So the fact that you're taking a lot of freshmen, I'm like, man, you might have the best team, for the Devy League, because you're set up in the future, right? But no, I love Zachariah Branch, and with a lot of the guys you're taking for this 2026 class, like we said, they're not going to get their shot necessarily out the gate. But man, this class in general, and this is just specific to this 2026 class, it's worth the wait because the talent is there. Just give them what you can, and it's worth the wait because you're going to be loving it, man, in a couple years.
Yeah, I like it with Malachi Nelson, getting all these guys together. This is, double up stack city. You start adding these guys as freshmen, put them on your C2C team. Oh, I love that. If I could stack all these USC guys or all these Texas guys on a team, I'm like, I'll sit around for 2 years and wait on them to blow up. And then my team is just fantastic because I got top guys at every position. So I love it. Lincoln Riley, he's shown he can put up points. He can win. USC gave him, boatloads of money to be there. And when USC is good, people love it. So I think these guys, we've talked about it. I'm investing in USC. I'm investing in Texas. I'm investing in Ohio State. I'm investing in these schools that keep bringing in talent on talent on talent. They've shown that they can produce them. They can get them to the NFL. There's no reason to fight it when this is what's working's working. Just go with it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. I agree with that. SC, you're up here, bud.
305, man. I feel this running back's getting forgotten. Now it's Clemson's running back, Will Shipley. This class is all about the Raheem Sanders, the Travion Henderson, and even the Braylon Allens or the Donovan Edwards, even Blake Corum. I feel kind of Will Shipley's getting forgotten here, so I took this more as a value pick at 305 because I think he's going to be in that rotation as one of the top 5 backs coming into this next year, this 2024 draft. So being able to grab him, I think that's great value for there. He's going to continue to produce. He's the running back in Clemson, and I just if you're getting him in the 3rd round of your Devy drafts, that to me that's a steal. Just because I think in 2024 he's gonna be one of the top running backs we're talking about when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and I think he has plenty of power. Also, I know a lot of the knock on him is his kind of in between the tackle running. I've seen quite a bit of power come out of him. I know he's not even Clemson's most powerful back, but he has plenty of juice to him. Be able to get through the line, goal line situations. He's perfectly capable. Short yardage, trying to get a first down situation, moving the chains. He's perfectly capable. The NFL will look at him. He's going to test pretty well. He's not the fastest guy, but I mean he's still going to run a 4.5 40 and be plenty be plenty fast and quick and show the ability to catch balls and run away from guys and make moves. He's not necessarily Christian McCaffrey. But he's that similar type of style of a player.
Right.
I actually like Shipley a lot. My biggest worry is, like you just said, he's not CMC. And my worry is that the NFL is going to want him to be. And if he's not exactly CMC, where NFL team's going to see him? And that's my only worry about him. I think he's got the talent. I love him in C2C, love him in CFF. My biggest worry Devy-wise with him is where's the NFL feel about him? Where do they lock him in at? I think he's got talent. I think he's got power, like you said. My worry is they think they want him to be CMC clone, and he might not be the CMC clone. If he's not, does he drop down draft boards because they don't know what to do with him? That's my only worry with Will Shipley because I really like the player, and I really like him C2C. I think he's going to put up great numbers at Clemson, but the Devy only stock for me is the only thing that's worrisome. And to me, that's why he would drop to like a 3rd round like this in the draft like this.
Well, my closer comp to Will Shipley is probably more like a Dalvin Cook. He can run well. He can catch the ball well. He does everything well. He's just not the most athletic guy. And him being that white running back, they're going to look at him and be like, oh, he's CMC. That's like you said, what happens if he's not and he's more Dalvin Cook? I don't see anything wrong with that, though.
I don't see anything wrong with that either. My worry is, what does the NFL think about that? That again, that's just completely me just throwing it out there. This is nothing I've heard or read or either say anything like that. But that's my only worry is if he doesn't hit those elite numbers, is he going to get that CMC comparison? Even if it's not fair, even if that's not really him, even if he is maybe more of a Dalvin Cook type player, our NFL team's going to look him that way. And to me, that's the only reason I think he's slipping a little bit Devy-wise, because I think he's got the talent to be drafted higher.
Dream scenario, he drops, down the rankings or whatever, but then next year the 49ers get him in like the 4th round or something, so he sits behind CMC, learns everything he needs to learn, and then boom, we have everything we're talking about. They're like, this is the guy we need.
SC coming up with a perfect game plan. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Well, let's not forget he also has the ability to come back for a senior year, so he may not even come out this year.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't necessarily know that.
And that's why I love him C2C, because say he does come back, and I'm like, bam, I get 2 awesome years of production. I mean, he's going to give you over 1,000 yards. He's going to give you double-digit touchdowns. And I think with Klubnik at quarterback, there's a chance they work him in a little bit more in the passing game like they did with Etienne when he was there. So I mean, C2C, I'm picking him way earlier than I am in a just straight Devy league where I'm looking at just pro prospects only. C2C, I absolutely love this guy.
Yep. You're up there, JT. You got back-to-back picks there.
Okay, so this goes back to a little bit of what we talked about earlier. I'm just, added to it. At 306, I took Arch Manning, QB out of Texas. Like I said, I'm going with the high upside of the talent that Texas is constantly bringing in. And him, they talked about a little QB battle with him and Quinn Ewers. I think Ewers wins that pretty easily. I don't even think they're going to try to play Manning. I think they'd rather not play him this year if they could and redshirt him and get another year behind Ewers, which I actually think that's good. Now he's seeing a guy that was, QB1 coming out of high school. He's seeing what they're expecting out of that guy. I actually think Arch Manning sitting a year is going to be super beneficial for him, sitting behind him, see how that works. But I love the class they brought in around him. So when it's his time to take over at Texas, I mean, when he steps in, he might be the first time he's starting. He could end up stepping in with Cook, Baxter, all these guys already with 1 or 2 years experience standing around him. I mean, he could be stepping into a prime position at Texas in a year or two. So that's why I took Arch Manning here. High upside pick. Maybe a little early in 3-6 and C2C or CFF. This is way too early for him probably because you're not going to see probably much of anything from him this year or maybe next year, depending on what happens. But I like the upside of him. So, and like I said, I love the talent going in around him. And then I had to go with my Devy guy because I just feel like at this point, he's going to have a great season this year, college-wise, but he's moved way up my board. I think the NFL is going to like him a lot. I'm jumping in at 3-7. I took Trey Benson, running back out of Florida State. Benson's a guy that's kind of moved up the boards this year. I took him last year in a couple leagues honestly, late. I took him in a flyer situation. I liked the talent. He had just transferred to Florida State. I thought it was a pretty open room, so I took him in more CFF C2C leagues because I didn't take him in any Devy leagues at all. But in C2C leagues, I was like, I like the upside of him getting playing time, and I think Florida State's on the way up. So I jumped in on him, and I'm glad I did because, man, he looked great down the stretch, and now the Devy hype is starting for him. So I think, the Devy hype's not as high as it could be yet. So if you're drafting a little bit early in the year, I think you could still get him at a pretty reasonable spot like this. I think you can get him mid-third, maybe early to mid-fourth, depending on what type of league you have. But I just like Benson a lot. He showed a lot. And I think going into this year with the job being his at Florida State, and I think Florida State's going to be so much better, I think we're going to see a lot out of Benson this year. I think we're going to see people really jump on board when it comes to him.
Well, a couple comments on these guys that you had mentioned here. Arch Manning, it's very possible he's their QB3 this year. Malik Murphy going into his second year there in the program. Malik Murphy, super talented also. Has a cannon for an arm, kind of one of those kind of bigger bruising type of runners also. He has a ton of talent. I could actually see him starting over Arch Manning next year once Quinn Ewers moves on. Trey Benson, he has flown up my running back rankings. Prior to last year, I don't even think I had him in my top 50. Now he's in my top 10. And he's steadily rising. He forced Trayshawn Ward to transfer out. Now that running back room is all his. So he is the undeniable guy there at Florida State. So he puts up another big year and then performs well at the combine and pro days and all that in the draft process, I could see him with pretty decent draft capital.
Yeah, I agree. I think Florida State's going to be one of those colleges that we're just going to be talking about a bunch of their players these next couple of years, because I think they're growing in some talent and these guys are producing. You know, you're going to talk about your Ohio States, your USC's, but I think Florida State's going to be one of those colleges where it's like, oh, wait, hold on. They have some talent here. We need to be paying attention to what's going on there.
Yeah, I think with a good season, I think Benson could slide into the late second, early third round of NFL draft. I think he could be up there. I think he's I've got him top 5 RB for next year going in the draft. And I think, if he can go with the right team, get somebody to really like him, you get one of those Pete Carrolls who doesn't care how many running backs he has and likes them and wants them anyway. I just think he just feels like that guy that's got the type of body style, the type of running style that will work in the NFL. And I just feel like, if he blows up, maybe he moves up earlier second, maybe late first, if he just has a monster combine. But I feel like it's safe to say that you could probably project him late second to mid to late third round at this point if he plays as well this year as he did last year.
And I'm sorry, I actually misspoke. I have Trey Benson as my RB11. So, close to the top 10.
Right in the mix.
Right there at it. All right, SC, you're up here, buddy. What do you got here at the 3-8?
So I'm going to take the wide receiver from Texas, Xavier Wardy. I do think Jonte Cook, when it's all said and done, will have more value than Wardy. But I think right now for Devy, I'm taking Wardy over him just because he's going to be one of your top wide receivers we're talking about. Someone that I do think I want to see gain a little bit more weight. I feel he's a little bit undersized, but he's explosive. We saw what Zay Flowers did this year. Right, going in. I think he's got to kind of run that same kind of track record where it's like he just plays big. He makes the plays. He gains separation. He's fast and quick. It doesn't matter who's his quarterback. He's going to show out and be one of their top guys this year. So, again, with a later pick at the wide receiver, I think this is just a value pick at this point because he's going to be possibly one of the top guys in the wide receiver room that might go in the first round. If we have that heavy production year from all these wide receivers, you might see 5 or 6 of them go in this first round, or at least within those first 40, 50 picks of the NFL draft. I really like him, and I think, even with the Donnie Mitchell there, I think he's still going to be, one of their top targets and one guy that you're going to be talking about when you're talking about Texas wide receivers.
Absolutely. He kind of fell off last season. So he's kind of slid down draft boards, but looking back on it, he had a broken hand. Mm-hmm. So if people thought he had the case of the drops, that was why. Go out there and try to catch a football with a broken hand and see how well you do.
Right.
I think this year coming back healthy, he's gonna jump back up people's boards. He has a potential to be a late first round, early second round NFL draft pick. He's highly productive. Go back to his freshman year and just look at that. Watch the film on him. He is a great college wide receiver that has the potential to put up big time numbers in the NFL as well.
Agreed.
All right, let's see. I have picked 3, 9, and 3, 10. I'm going back to another freshman, quarterback out of Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava. I've seen him described as a 6'6" version of Bryce Young. Now, tell me, if Bryce Young was 6'6", would anybody have doubted him as the number 1 draft pick in the NFL draft this past year?
No, he'd be the unquestioned more than likely.
Right. So now you look at Nico at 6'6", 200. He's up over 200 pounds now. They're actually wanting him to get 215, 220 by the fall. But he's so fluid. He can scramble outside the pocket, make runs, but he drops everything right in the breadbasket. Mm-hmm. he made one throw in the spring game to the freshman tight end Ethan Davis. It was incredible. It was on the run, along the sideline. Nobody could catch the ball but Ethan Davis. It was fantastic, and you could see the potential right there with him. Now he's not going to play this year. Obviously, it's Joe Milton's job, and the only way Nico gets in there is if Joe gets hurt. But there's plenty of buzz on Joe Milton right now too. I don't know if you guys have been seeing it or not. There was a video the other day, threw the ball 82 yards, just
cannon
up and just flung it. It was almost effortless.
I was about to say almost effortless.
Almost effortless. The guy has thrown an orange over 100 yards into the back wall of the practice complex. So, speaking of that video from the other day where he threw the 82-yard pass, he then casually, 6'5", 240 plus pounds, does a backflip. People fell in love with Anthony Richardson last year. They're going to love Joe Milton too. I digress. We're talking about Nico here. Nico is going to be the next guy after Joe Milton in that Josh Heupel offense, and that is just going to be fantastic to watch.
I mean, and you speak about Nico or Milton, whoever you want to talk about there. I mean, we just saw what Hendon Hooker did, and he to me was the Heisman winner before he got hurt. I think he was going to win it hands down. It was his, and then he got hurt, and then of course, he didn't play the few games there at the end. But with these guys coming in, Milton and Nico, 2 years ago when Nico was a junior, he was my QB1 of this class. Now I start to see more with Dante Moore, Malachi Nelson, but I'm saying that because he can unquestionably win the QB1 job in this whole draft class. So when it's all said and done, he may be the 101 in the NFL draft. We just don't know. But with that type of offense that they do run there, it does look very easy for him to just have success. He's just someone that, again, one of those fluid guys. He kind of just goes with the wind in a sense, but just looks so effortless. And as you said, right in the basket. They just need to put their arms down. He's like, I got you. I know where your hands are. I got you. And that's what I love about him. And he's tall. He's seeing over the line. He's not someone that needs to jump up or, get up on his high toes or anything like that. He sees over the line. So he's not going to have a trouble, transitioning to the NFL with that size.
Well, he's a pure athlete. He was a big time volleyball player in high school also. Mm-hmm. So, he has that pure athleticism, the ability to move, be explosive, which is very valuable in today's NFL because they like to get those quarterbacks outside the pocket with the ability to make plays, extend plays, kind of be creative, and he has every bit of that.
Right.
All right, my 310 pick here. I went kind of with a guy who has slid a little bit since last year. Not necessarily his fault. He just didn't get a chance to play because he was behind another stud quarterback. And he'll be behind another quarterback this year. But that's a Devin Brown, quarterback, Ohio State. 2025 guy. I just see him being that next Ohio State guy, which those guys are always valuable. And CJ Stroud did such an unbelievable job there that now it's going to be Kyle McCord's job most likely. And then you're looking at Devin Brown the following, next year. But don't give up on him just because he hasn't seen the field. He will get there. It's just one of those programs where he's not needed right away.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, whether it's McCord or Brown, I mean, we're going to see some great things from them. It's probably going to be, McCord going here, but Ohio State, they're giving these guys weapon where failure is not an option. You're not going to, you don't have to be great, but if you're good, you're going to look great in that offense, and I think both those guys have the talent there for it as well.
Oh, yeah. All right, SC, looks like you're up at 311 there, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, and McCord was on the list here. I was like, man, all right, Brown's gone. I might take him. I did stack up on quarterback early, so I did go with Katron Allen, running back from Penn State. If there's any two running backs I want from the same team, it's the Penn State of Singleton and Katron Allen. I just love them both. I had him, last year as a freshman, and it was like, okay, maybe I won't see it. Singleton's got, job to take. But Katron went in there and he still produced. He still put up numbers, behind Singleton, who we said earlier is arguably probably the RB1 of his class and might even be your RB1 in Devy's right now, right? So I do like what he's going to do. And if for whatever reason Singleton goes down, Katron Allen's going to go in there and just act like nothing happened. You're not even going to be like, oh, Singleton's down, because he's going to go in there and just bruise it himself. So I really like the value there. And I think he's someone, whether it's C2C or then he's going to have good value for you in return, produce at the college level. And then we're going to see day 3, probably, round 4, round 5 running back. But you look at with, Tank Bigsby, Damian Pierce, those type of guys that went there, I think Katron could do some similar damage as far as the NFL level when he's all said and done.
Yeah, people don't need to sleep on Katron Allen just because he's not the biggest name back in that backfield. He is very, very good in his own right. He had over 800 yards as a freshman last year to Singleton's over 1,000. So they run the ball quite a bit there, and they gave Katron Allen quite a bit of opportunity, and he took advantage of it.
Agreed. Yeah, I feel like Allen's like a guy you can steal right now. Because again, you're like you said, everybody's on Singleton. People kind of forget about him. He's probably dropping farther than he really should be in leagues, especially in a CFF or C2C, where people think I'm not getting a ton of production out of him because he put up good numbers last year, like you just said. And if something happens to Singleton, he gets an injury, he is gonna ball out huge. I love the value you're getting for him. If he can drop later, he's the guy I'm all over. So he's one of those, like, if I'm sitting in a draft, I'm just kind of eyeing him for round after round. I'm like, how late can I wait before I can jump on him? Because I just think he is such a good value because he's a guy that people kind of forget about sometimes just for the fact that technically he's RB2. I just think he is one of the top values at running back right now.
Agreed.
Yep. All right, JT, go and finish off this 3-round mock here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we just talked about it. I don't know if you want to throw up the 3rd round here and show everybody, but we just talked about it. Like Devin Brown, you grabbed him. I think he's got huge upside. I know, as he just said, he was like, oh, I was looking at Devin Brown. I was looking at McCord. I took Allen. I jumped on Kyle McCord. His, he went to high school with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that gives him a leg up going into this year as possibly being the starter for Ohio State with Devin Brown right behind him. And we know these guys can produce. If I'm on a C2C side or a CFF, I want Kyle McCord. I think he's going to put up crazy numbers. Now, will that transition to him being one of those Ohio State quarterbacks that gets picked high in the NFL draft, or does that make him one of those quarterbacks we saw were great in college and just flamed out and never made it in the pros and got drafted late? I don't know. I'm not sure yet. But in a C2C league, I want him because I think he's going to give me elite production this year at Ohio State, and I think he's going to have a shot, depending on how the testing numbers go and everything else. I think he's going to have a shot to get a real chance in the NFL. Now, does that mean I think he's a top 5 or top 10 pick in the NFL? I don't know. I doubt that unless something crazy happens. But he's a guy I could see going late first, maybe mid-second, even dropping to an early 3rd that has a shot, to make it a la like a Russell Wilson type. So I love him, C2C. Devy, I think he's worth a shot. Obviously, I like some of those young, like you guys said, some of those young QBs maybe a little bit better than Devy. But CFF, C2C, McCord's up there for me because I just think the college production you can get with the upside of the NFL is just too much to pass up at the end of the 3rd round.
Yeah.
I've kind of been a little bit lost on Kyle McCord. I know he was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. Ohio State's a big time program. He did push CJ Stroud all the way up to the beginning of 2 seasons ago. So to see who was going to take that job. Obviously, C.J. Stroud ended up winning it, and then they brought in Devin Brown, and it looks like he's going to hold off Devin Brown. So obviously, he has the tools. He's going to have the big time program backing, the big time wide receiver, big time weapons to throw to. I'm interested to see what type of draft capital he does get. Obviously, that's going to depend on what type of season he has, and how he performs during the draft process. I'm interested to see what he does on field. I know he's got a little bit of mobility. He's got a pretty decent arm. I want to see his decision making on field, how that works, especially with all those weapons, because you have all those weapons. There's no reason to not be effective. I really want to see how he performs with those guys on field.
And I think with Ohio State, we're gonna know really early if it's gonna be Devin Brown or Common Court. Because if one of them isn't cutting it, they're gonna switch it out real early and say, "Wait, there's no way you have all these weapons and it's not working out." So I mean, whoever's starting week 1, if they're not happening by week 3, we're gonna see a QB change. It's gonna.
I think it's gonna be a pretty short leash too.
So.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on that. Yeah, I mean, Cord, like you said, they're expecting him to put up big numbers, look great early. If he doesn't, with all that talent around him, it's going to be a bad sign real quick.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. I'm going to throw up a list here of guys that we did not put in our 3-round mock here that very easily could have been in that. We could have easily gone 5-6 rounds in this thing. And we may still not have hit everybody we wanted to hit. So I'm going to throw up a list here. I want each of you, I want all 3 of us to kind of pick out a guy or 2 to talk about, just to kind of give people a little bit more info with guys to watch out for. All right, I will start it off here. I'm going to go with Riley Leonard, quarterback out of Duke. He's another guy who could possibly end up in that QB3 range in this next upcoming draft. Picture let's see, names escaping me. Daniel Jones. Picture Daniel Jones, but with more mobility. Maybe not quite as strong of an arm, but more mobility. Possibly even a little bit better decision maker. Riley Leonard just does not turn the ball over. He has a good enough arm to make all the throws, and is very mobile. And plays for a program that's actually not very good, but he still gets the job done. Riley Leonard is a guy who I believe is going to shoot up NFL draft boards come next April. He's going to test well. He's going to interview well. He's a smart guy, and he's going to very much be in that mix for the QB3 next year. Another guy I kind of want to touch on here. Actually, I got 2 of them. Same wide receiver room. Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze. Those 2 guys could have easily been taken in the 3rd round of this draft we did. I know we get highly enamored with incoming freshmen and their potential, but these guys have a high ceiling also. They're going to be highly drafted. They're going to have nice draft capital in the next year's NFL draft. They're going to put up big numbers this year with a big time quarterback coming back, Michael Penix Jr. Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze. Keep an eye on those guys. If they're available in any type of supplemental, make sure you go grab them. Those guys will have a pretty decent NFL careers also.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of those. Riley Leonard, I like that comp to Daniel Jones, and there's not a lot of Daniel Jones truthers, so you may be able to get him if that is what he becomes, and he could, get that top 10 season for you. So I love that with it. Romeo did say it was going to be one of mine, but I'll go to the different wide receiver room because we had, we talked about Brandon Ennis and his value there. If you miss out on him, Carnell Tate and Noah Rogers are definitely two wide receivers to go grab at later rounds because they're in that wide receiver room of Ohio State and they're just producing wide receivers like it's candy, from Wonka Factory, if you will. They're just getting those guys in there. And so if you don't want to take that high draft value of Brandon Ennis, go after them in your fifth or sixth rounds because chances are you'll be able to get them. The running back I'm really loving right now is Alton McCaskill, transferred to Colorado. Coach Prime just completely transitioned that whole team. It's going to be a whole different offense, whole different defense than what we're seeing. And Alton McCaskill is going to be a part of that. He did get hurt last year, so he kind of slipped down some boards. But 2 years ago, as a freshman, he produced as one of the ACC top running back out with the Houston Cougars. So I do love what he's going to become, and I'm not sleeping on him, and I hope you don't, because if he's healthy, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in that Pac-12 and that Colorado offense.
I love those picks by both of you guys. I'm hoping McCaskill is awesome at Colorado. My niece just graduated high school. She's going to University of Colorado Boulder. She's pumped about Neon Dion, Coach Prime. I can't wait to go out there and see a game with her. So I gave her, you guys are going to love this, an old Coy Detmer jersey from 1995. I had authentic Colorado number 14. I gave her for her graduation present. She cried. She thought it was amazing. I was like, this is a classic 25-year-old jersey. She loved it. So I was like, take this to school with you freshman year. Your friends won't know what to say about it. A little piece of that. My two guys I'm taking, I'm going a little more C2C CFF here as opposed to Devy. Damian Martinez, Oregon State. He took over that running back room, last half of the season, and was an absolute beast. He's got good size. He plays on the West Coast. Oregon State's not Oregon, so people just don't pay attention enough to him. He's a guy that you're going to get for decent value if you're in a league with people who aren't really paying attention, because he's just not a hot name that everybody talks about and sees. But man, the guy was great down the stretch last year. I loved him coming in as a freshman. I thought he could take over that job. He did. He's a guy, C2C. I think he's going to go up Devy boards here in the future. But right now, if you're in a C2C or CFF league, he's going to produce next year. I love him. My wide receiver I like. Now, he's not the sexiest player on USC, but Dorian Singer is a guy, C2C. I could see him sneakily end up being the number one wideout for Caleb Williams this year. I could see him sneaking up there. He's a guy, I'm not sure what his Devy upside is. I think he could possibly be a second rounder, maybe an early third in the NFL draft if he has a great year this year. But I like Singer in that C2C format where I just think he's going to have a chance with that high-powered USC offense. A lot of young studs on that team, but he's going to have that first look, and I have a feeling that he's a guy that could end up having a huge season.
No, I love Martinez. I mean, again, being from Oregon, I'm watching these Oregon boys, Oregon State boys, and Martinez is definitely someone on my radars, and you nailed it. I think in the state of Oregon, for your college leagues, he's going to be the best running back that you want to grab in the state of Oregon. He's just a phenomenal athlete, and I love to see what he's going to do in his second year.
Well, let's not sleep on Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving is a pretty dynamic running back too. Damian Martinez is also really, really good. I don't think you could go wrong with either one of those guys in your C2C or CFF league. As far as Devy and NFL potential, I see Damian Martinez as more NFL ready now. Just that kind of NFL that running back body. He's up over 230 pounds. Just gonna pound you up the middle. Another couple guys, we could do this all night. We're nearing 2 hours here, but I don't want to leave this show without talking about you got Mekhi Lemon, Southern Cal, Matthew Golden, Houston, then a couple tight ends. Deuce Robinson, Oscar Delp, Mason Taylor, Jatavian Sanders. You guys, I mean, I'm leaving that list up here for a second, just so everybody is able to see what type of talent is still left on the board after that 3-round draft we did. It's just ridiculous. Jurion Dickey. There's just a crazy amount of talent. So doing a 3-round draft may not quite be enough. So if you're doing a startup, a 5-round draft may be the way to go with the amount of talent that's still left on the board.
Yeah, Tommy, I think we did a 3-round draft because we knew we were going to talk about these guys forever. We love these guys, so that we only did 3 because we're like, man, that's all we could fit into a 2-hour show. But I think this is a perfect time. If you're watching this on YouTube, on your phone or on your computer, screenshot or others to watch the list right now. Screenshot that list. Keep that when you're doing a draft because a ton of those guys are great pickups. We didn't even get really into the tight ends because they're just not that high as far as talking about Devy and that stuff. Ton of great players out there. They just don't tend to go as high as the top 3 rounds because you just never know how college teams are going to use tight ends. You never know how those guys are going to hit at the next level, but a ton of talent. But man, that list you got put together right there, QBs, running backs, wide receiver, tight ends, I'm going to have that list up on all my supplemental drafts. Right now, what I'm doing in every league is I'm looking through this list and I'm looking at whatever league I'm in, CFF, C2C, Devy. I'm trying to figure out who hasn't gone. What leagues do these guys fall through the cracks and I can scoop up? Number 1 on my list is probably Bucky Irving. He's one of the guys I looked at most of my leagues across the board. He slid through the cracks last year and he's out there. So he's a guy I am targeting hard going into drafts this year.
Well, I just took over an orphan in one of SC's C2C leagues, and pretty bad team. But it won't be for long because there's a lot of these guys who are available in that league that I'm looking to scoop up and make that team into a contender.
Yeah, I hesitated inviting you because I know you have knowledge. I was like, somebody invite him. He's about to turn this team from nothing to a championship roster in one season.
That's the goal. Well, all right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. We are now officially at 2 hours. Another great show for everybody out there. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you would hit the like and subscribe, that would do us a great favor. For JT and SC, I'm Tommy Harvey. We will see you guys 2 weeks from tonight. We are going to start doing our conference breakdowns, and we're going to start off with the SEC 2 weeks from tonight. So make sure you tune in, and we will see you guys later.